It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Football Friday. We go into a very nice weekend. I think the weather's going to be just fine for football in the state of South Carolina. Looking forward to the games tomorrow night involving the Gamecocks and the Tigers, the Gamecocks against UT Chattanooga. I call this a bye weekend for USC. They are buying a win.
Walkover weekend.
I like to call it a bye weekend. My words, bye weekend. They're paying for this win. B-U-I. Get it, Brian? I think Brian gets it. You don't get it.
I get it. I prefer walkover week.
Okay. Well, next time you open the show, you can call it walkover week. Okay. And Clemson hosting Duke up in the Valley, trying to go unbeaten through the ACC schedule and take another step towards the playoffs. And, of course, we are all looking ahead to next week. Thanksgiving's just a meal. And then 2 days later, it's just a game. South Carolina and Clemson, South Carolina. Looking forward to that. But tonight we'll talk about the games coming up this weekend, give you our picks from our illustrious panel. We'll have our football filibuster with the governor and the lieutenant governor. Sterling picks from Lee Sterling. Those of you who criticized, he bounced back last week with a winning weekend. We'll have opposition research.
Yes, we do. A little chat with the voice of Duke, David Shoemate, and man who covers the Chattanooga Mocs, Gene Henley. And it's weird, Corn, more and more I look at this. We talked about this before the season with South Carolina. They don't blow out a lot of people. I mean, that Coastal Carolina game the first week of the year was probably the first time under Will Muschamp we've seen a real, true, good old-fashioned slobber knocker blowout where South Carolina was able to get their starters out of the ball game early and conserve guys from getting injured. And of course, unfortunately, they had a guy get injured in that game, and DJ Wanham already. I'm wondering if that can be the same thing for them this week, because they're going to need to get some of these freshmen some time. A lot of these guys who haven't seen the field, I think they got to kind of figure out what they have going into these final 3-4 weeks of the season, just because of the fact that they most likely, because of this victory, will get a bowl game, and you have the makeup game against Akron. So you have 4 games left. You have a lot of guys who haven't logged any service time, to carry on Joyner being one of them. This is the time period of the season. This is the game where you kind of have to find out what you have.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, they should take care of business here early. There's no reason for UTC to hang. And UTC, up until the last couple of years, they were one of the best teams in the SoCon. They shared or won the Southern Conference Championship 3 years in a row, had an excellent quarterback playing for his dad. They have a new coach now in Tom Arth, who comes from John Carroll. They have lost some close games. Yes. Their record is 6-4, but could be a lot better, and they have suffered some very close losses, including one last week. But they throw it really well. They don't run it all that well. But they don't have the talent. They don't have the depth to match up with South Carolina. So it would be inexcusable for South Carolina to let this be a game that carries deeply into the second half. You should get a chance to see a lot of young players, maybe some guys who are within the red shirt threshold, well below the 4-game cutoff that you can play. And maybe play them some against Akron in a couple of weeks, kind of like an early start to a spring practice for them, and kind of see what they look like under the lights.
The thing about this Chattanooga team, though, it's a team that does play very good defense at their level. 8th in the FCS in scoring defense. They were 1st in the SoCon, so they don't allow a lot of points. I don't believe they'll be able to move the football against South Carolina. I think that's one thing that is increasingly evident. It's just a matter of whether or not South Carolina can get back to their offense, get back to what makes them confident. They're going to have some question marks when it comes to the running back situation, obviously, with potential game time situation with Dowdle. Possible injury to Tyson Williams. They're going to need to figure out how to get some rhythm, because they're going to need all of that and then some when they take on Clemson next week.
Yes, indeed. Now, as far as Clemson and Duke, again, the Tigers are big favorites, 28-point favorites, and they too would like to take care of their work as early as they can and rest as many people as they can and get in as many young guys as possible. Now, Duke is listen, they went to Northwestern and beat a team that's going to play for the Big Ten championship. You got to give them their credit on that. They've got a dangerous quarterback. Daniel Jones is a guy that, Dabo said he'll be an NFL quarterback, and others have said that as well. He's a big guy with a good arm. They suffered some injuries. They lost a starting safety. They'll be playing a young safety back there who's from Westside High School, Lamel Young, who actually grew up a Clemson fan. I remember following his recruiting. I think if Clemson had offered him and gone after him, that's where he would have gone. But Duke came in and got him, and that was a good pickup for them. And so, I mean, Clemson can't go into this game thinking it's just going to be a cakewalk because Duke under David Cutcliffe has really played some good football over the last 2 or 3 years, and offensively they are able to strike and strike deep.
It's one of the best coaches they've seen all year with Cutcliffe. I think, between him, Jimbo Fisher, I think those are probably the two best coaches that are on the schedule for Clemson this season. And because of that, you have to account for a lot of things that you might not see on film, especially with the offense, and because of the fact that they just don't have a lot of crossover opponents. So because of that, and they don't play very often, the fact that there's an unfamiliarity there, which is kind of made me surprised why the line was as high as it was. I think a lot of it is just, again, the manner in which Clemson has been winning its football games. I think it's more a credit to them than necessarily a discredit to Duke. You wonder whether or not that's going to change things from Clemson's perspective, just because of the fact that, again, much like South Carolina, they're going to try to use this game, I'm sure, a lot of it as a laboratory, because this is their last opportunity before the postseason to kind of get things in order before you start thinking about a college football playoff semifinal, which, of course, a lot of Clemson fans have already started looking forward to and looking ahead to.
For sure. Other football tomorrow around the state, and there's some important games, including the games in the Southern Conference, Furman and Wofford. Now, Wofford going outside the league, Wofford playing Presbyterian. I think Wofford, of course, they should beat PC.
Should.
And I think that's going to put them in great shape to get at least an at-large bid to the FCS playoffs. I can't see them not making it if they don't get a share of the Southern Conference title. To get a share, and same thing for Furman, they need East Tennessee State to lose to Samford tomorrow. East Tennessee State has one league loss. Furman and Wofford, they have two each. If it's a three-way tie, if it comes down to that, Furman has the tiebreaker in terms of point differential allowed inside league play, which right now is a 16-point edge for them. So they would have to give up 17 points in their game tomorrow against Mercer, against their old quarterback and their old coach, Bobby Lamb, to have that situation go against them. So that's something to watch. SC State plays at home against Savannah State tomorrow. Buddy Pugh tries to keep it going, tries to win another game. Coastal Carolina will be home to a Georgia Southern, trying to get their sixth win.
Interesting.
Trying to get their sixth win and become bowl eligible. They have lost their last two, Appalachian State and Arkansas State. Of course, the Citadel playing at Alabama is a 51-point underdog.
You see their tweet that they put out today?
Of course.
Wearing the same uniforms that they wore up here when they upset the Gamecocks.
Well, I'm sorry.
Be the only thing that they have in common, unfortunately.
That's not the Gamecocks standing across the sideline, and they're not in an interim coaching situation as South Carolina was that particular day. Let's see. Newberry is done, finished up its season at 5-6. Benedict is done, finished up its season at 6-3. Charleston Southern plays at Campbell tomorrow. Allen has a makeup game at Brevard tomorrow. North Greenville is finished at 4-6, and Limestone finished at 0-10.
One thing I wonder about Alabama, though, is if you don't have a 100% Tua with that knee, that 51-point line is a lot of points.
How much do you play him if you're Alabama?
I wouldn't suit him up.
Yeah,
honestly, I think if you can't beat Citadel with Mac Jones as your quarterback, then you don't deserve to win.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts still out.
He's still been kind of iffy. So again, it's a situation. Again, that probably tells you more about Mac Jones than it does about anything, because he looked, I don't want to say incompetent, but ineffective last week against Mississippi State.
All right, we'll hit a break here on Sports Talk. We've got high school football playoffs. And, of course, in the Skeezer ranks, you've got state championship games.
Hammond planned for a state championship
this weekend. Yeah, we'll catch up with David Shelton on the other side of the break.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as we continue here on a Football Friday. We will get to David Shelton, high school sports report, Charleston Post and Courier in a moment. Also, not to be outdone, there is basketball this weekend concerning the South Carolina Gamecocks. They are playing in the Naismith Memorial Invitational Tournament. They're playing up there in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. They'll play Providence 2:30 tomorrow. Frank Martin's Gamecocks 2-1 currently on the young season. Clemson on a plane to the Cayman Islands, Corn. They will be playing in the Cayman Islands Invitational Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They play Akron on Monday, and then 2 other games. Could possibly play Georgia in that tournament.
The tournament at Myrtle Beach is ongoing as well. That thing has been flat sold out.
Stacked.
Now, it's not a huge arena, the HTC Center, by any means, but that's a nice show of support because there is no South Carolina team in the field this year.
It's because they invited all the Snowbird teams down. That's why.
And West Virginia, which travels extremely well. And you know what? Greg Marshall, karma, baby. You blow off my man Scott Eisberg when he walks up to you and wants to get a quick comment about you being back in Charleston while you're on the streets of Charleston. You blow him off, and what happens to you? You get beat in your first game. It's karma.
Davidson, man.
It's karma.
I tell you what, I've heard, again, independently, that Greg Marshall, not exactly the nicest person in the world. When it comes to
nobody. I mean, that's well known.
Nobody's not necessarily taken up for that guy.
Well, I mean, Greg's just got kind of a surly attitude at times. And I'm sorry, you could take 5 minutes and talk to a local TV reporter from Charleston who sought you out, and you used to coach at the College of Charleston. You were the head coach there for about a day, and you could give him 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
It wouldn't take that long with Scotty.
USC women's soccer loses to Penn State in the NCAA tournament round of 32. They lose 1-0. USC women's basketball beat Clemson last night in Columbia. The score was closer than it has been in years between those two. The Gamecocks had a very sloppy performance, turned it over like 25 times, played a horrible second half. But by winning that game, South Carolina takes a 3-2 lead on Clemson in the Palmetto series, if you're following that.
It's quite a back and forth tilt there. Amanda Butler's squad really showed some spunk.
Mm-hmm. And they've got football coming up. That'll be the next athletic point, but there's also the food drive going on until November 18th. That'll also count as a point for the two teams. High school football tonight around the state. We've got more playoffs.
Brings you very, very interesting playoff picture this weekend, and it's brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With Fave Rates from Farm Bureau, you get all your favorite things like competitive rates, local agents, and great claim service for all of your auto, home, and life insurance needs. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com with Farm Bureau Insurance.
All right, we welcome in David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and the Charleston Post and Courier. Another night of the playoffs, and it's championship weekend for those Skeezer guys there, David.
Yeah, we're going to have some champions crowned. And, this is, for me, this is when the playoffs really start. I mean, I know there are games last week, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but you start playing for titles this weekend. You get past the second round. If you're practicing next Friday or next Thursday on Thanksgiving, that means you're really a good team. And so this is how we kind of separate it now. We kind of get it in the high school league. We kind of separate the pretenders from the contenders, and then with skis, obviously, we'll have state champions tomorrow night about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, let's run down that schedule tonight. It's the 8-man championship. Andrew Jackson against Buford Academy. They're playing that at Patrick Henry. And then tomorrow at Benedict at noon, it's the 2A championship. Florence Christian against John Paul II. At 3:30, the 1A championship, Thomas Hayward against PD. And the 3A championship is Hammond against First Baptist. Michael Dukes the other night rushed for 332 yards, I think it was. Can he have that kind of night against Hammond tomorrow night?
Well, if he does, they're going to win. I can tell you that. I don't know that he could do that, but he had a really good game the first time they played. They played earlier this year, and Hammond won 28-21. But both coaches will tell you it was not a thing of beauty. There were about 9 turnovers, I think, and a pick six for both sides, and Hammond fumbled on the one, and First Baptist quarterback threw 5 picks. So I don't think the first game is a true test as to what you're going to see tomorrow night. I think you're going to see both teams play pretty darn well. And as I said, if they both play their best, Hammond has a really, really slight edge, just a slight edge. So it's going to be a very competitive game. For First Baptist, they just need to stay in the game. They can't fall behind early because Hammond has had a history in the state championship games of just blowing people out. So they gotta stay close. Let Dukes keep Dukes a factor, meaning as long as they can run the football and stay close, Dukes will be a factor. And he'll have his yards. I mean, he's going to get 150 plus.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got to score touchdowns, and then their defense has to really play well.
All right, to the high school league, and I was in Sumter this morning for the always fun Sumter Touchdown Club, and of course,
went well.
Went great, yeah. And Coach Sumter folks were there. Coach Barnes from Sumter doing a great job. I got him confused with the coach. We were talking last week. I got him confused with the coach from Carolina Thomas. That's Carolina Forest. That's Mark Thomas, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And this is Mark Barnes at Sumter. Yeah. Okay. I want to clarify that. So anyway, part of the talk was all the trash talk on social media coming from the upstate, from the Burns folks, about how easy this is going to be for them to go into Sumter and win this ball game.
Yeah. Imagine that. Burns talking trash on social media. I've never heard of that. I mean, you know what? This is not going to be an easy game for them. Sumter's pretty dang good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying Burns won't win the game, but I'm thinking if they think they're going to come in here against that defense and just roll, I don't see it happening. I mean, I think had Sumter been seated in the lower state, which again we could talk about this till we're blue in the face. They're in Sumter, so they're not in the upstate. But if they had been seated in the lower state, they would have been the second pick behind Dutch Fork, I think. But they'll give Burns all they want. I mean, it won't be a shocker to me if at 10 o'clock tonight we're talking about Sumter beat Burns. It won't be a shocker if Burns wins. But I think, for anybody to think that they're just going to go into Sumter and just roll them, I'd be shocked. I mean, we're talking, 49-14 tonight, then I'll say I was wrong. I just don't think it's going to be that type of game.
Is there anything in your mind that keeps us from having that juicy-looking quarterfinal at Dutch Fork, Fort Dorchester?
Dutch Fork will be there. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Fort Dorchester going on the road to West Florence to get a really good run game. I would say that Fort's got a tougher road to hoe, but West Florence is going to have to stop them. West Florence's defense has not been great. They've been outscoring a lot of people. They average about 49 points a game, but they give up some points. So if they give up 30 points tonight, I don't think they're going to beat Fort Dorchester. But I would say Fort is a slight favorite, even though they're on the road. But that's not like, you're not talking about an atmosphere that's intimidating at Florence Memorial. I mean, West Florence won't sell the place out or anything like that. So I think it's going to be just like a typical regular season road game, but they better stop Aleem Ford because he's capable of putting up 205 touchdowns on you if you don't play well.
Do you think Carolina Forest has a decent shot against Somerville?
No, I really don't. I mean, I just think Somerville right now is playing about as well as any team in the state. Defensively, they're really good. I mean, they're good in the back. Their linebackers are crazy active. They've got some studs up front. I mean, I think they're really good. I think Carolina Forest can compete with them, but I just don't think they're going to be able to score with them. I don't see them scoring more than twice or so, and I think Somerville's going to put up 3 or 4 touchdowns with been in at quarterback.
All right, 20 seconds. The rest of the classes, you see one big upset looming out there?
Let's watch Westwood at Ridgeview. It was a blowout the first time. Ridgeview handled it pretty easily. I want to see if Westwood's for real. But other than that, no, I don't see any major upset.
We shall see, and we shall see you later tonight with the scoreboard shows at 10, 10:30, and 11. Thank you, David.
Take care.
David Shelton, High School Sports Reports, with us here on Sports Talk. Be right back. Welcome back into Sports Talk, everybody. It is time for the most important 10 minutes of your week here on Sports Talk as we welcome in two of the great citizens of the state of South Carolina, former Governor Jim Hodges. Good to have Governor Hodges with us once again. Governor, how are you?
I am great. I'm out of state today, but I'm excited. I'm hoping to get back home tomorrow.
Well, good. You might be out of state physically, but I know your heart remains in South Carolina.
Absolutely.
And former Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer. Good evening, Lieutenant Governor. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm out of state as well.
Well, I know your heart remains in South Carolina, too.
It does. I'm in Charleston.
Oh, I got it. You're one of those snooty Charlestonians that think you're your own state, huh?
Hey, I was out there in blue jeans today planting bushes. I didn't feel very snooty.
Yeah, I understand. Hey, listen, very good week for you last week. A 5-0 slate. Congratulations.
About damn time.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to save your best for last. This is where we separate the men from the boys here on the football filibuster. It's what you do at the end. It's championship season, as Dabo likes to say. So 5-0 for you last week. You pick up a game on the Gov, who had a good week, Governor, 4-1. So that's not bad.
Look, if I'm 60 to 65%, I'm happy, and I will be the winner at the end of the year.
You know, quarterback completion percentage now, they're looking for 70 now, Jim. Come on now.
Well, I'm not a quarterback, and neither is Andre.
I understand. If Andre was a quarterback, he'd be like Nathan Peterman, though.
34-21 for the Governor, 31-24 for the Lieutenant Governor. So a 3-game difference between the two. Plenty of time to make that up. We've got this week, we've got next week, we've got championship weekend, and we've got bowl games. So no need to sweat it, no need to panic. Let's get at it. We have gone with a completely South Carolina-based theme in our games this week. Every game has got a South Carolina team in it, so you should be well familiar with the teams we're talking about. So, Andre, are you ready to lead off, sir?
Ready to go.
You have chosen to receive, and so we'll start with Georgia Southern at Coastal Carolina. Chanticleer is trying to break a 2-game slide. They're getting 7 at home, and you say, sir, what?
As much as I love Coastal, my little farm's right down the street from them, and my Myrtle Beach Speedway that I own is right down the street from there. But I'm gonna have to go with Georgia Southern. They've had a better year. Their record's better. When you look at the opponents they've played versus some of the same opponents that Coastal's played, I don't think they're going to bode very well on Saturday, and so I'm going to pick the away team. As much as I love Coastal, I'm going to pick Georgia Southern.
Wait a minute.
And my wife went to Coastal.
You own Myrtle Beach Speedway?
I have a partner in it, but I own part of it.
How about that? You get us some free tickets there whenever they have a race?
You let me know. I'll get you some free tickets there. On a good night, you might catch me out there. Once in a while, I go out there and put a car in the track and race it. I finished second in the points 3 years ago.
See, I think that's where you need to be. You need to be in an enclosed arena there with your driving habits. That's where you need to be.
Oh man, I love that place.
It is. It's an awesome place.
Built
Governor,
1957.
Really? Fantastic. Governor, what do you think? Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina.
I think Andre's right. It's going to be the Eagles. They're just a stronger team than Coastal, even with 7 points. I think I'm taking them.
You ever visit Myrtle Beach Speedway, Governor?
I have not visited Myrtle Beach Speedway. I did not know that Andre was an owner, but I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, I hate to pick against the money man, but it's just too tough to do. Yeah,
Georgia Southern seems to be the pick. Let's go to Savannah State at South Carolina State. The Bulldogs home, laying 11. Buddy Pugh's career may be coming to a close in Orangeburg. We shall see. Governor, what do you think?
Big fan of Buddy Pugh. I knew him when he was at Carolina and dealt with him a good bit when he became coach at SC State. I'm going to take the Bulldogs. I think that Buddy's going to do well in this game, and Savannah State doesn't look very strong.
Yeah. Andre, what do you think, sir?
My family's from Branchville, and I'm a huge Buddy Pugh fan, as well as a Willie Jeffries fan, a big Willie Jeffries fan, and I think SC State's going to bring one home tomorrow for the Bulldogs.
Okay, yeah, everybody likes those guys, and see if Buddy can keep it going here down the stretch. The Citadel at Alabama. Bulldogs getting 51 on the road. Hopefully they took some of their cannons with them and maybe a cannonball or two will take down a Crimson Tider and help them out. Maybe bust a knee or something. Who knows? What do you think, Andre? Is 51 enough?
I was on the phone with one of the members of the Board of Trustees that was headed down there today, and the Citadel is excited to go down there and perform. And we talked about the mid-'90s when I was at South Carolina. They beat the Gamecocks, but I do not think that is going to happen tomorrow with Alabama. Alabama is going to have a field day. They're going to prove to everyone in the nation that they are still the best team in the nation. They are going to run the score up as hard as they can go, and 51 is not going to be enough to cover the spread for them.
Hell, Andre, Citadel beat the Gamecocks just 3 years ago. Where were you? Remember?
I was in Charleston.
Maybe no Tua. You never know.
Hey, you know what the Citadel did today? They rolled out a tweet once again showing highlights of the win over South Carolina. They will not let that go, Governor. They continue to put the salt in the wound of the Gamecocks there.
Well, part of that's because they're never going to schedule Citadel ever again after what happened.
Yeah, that's true. Let me just say this: if those Citadel boys thought that their knob year was bad, wait till they get to Tuscaloosa.
I just hope they defend our border better than they defend against Alabama.
I love the Citadel's football tradition, but Alabama is just too tough, too strong, and I'm with Andre on this one. It's going to be 60 points or so.
That joke.
I'm taking the 51. I'm sorry. I am taking the 51. I think that they're going to call off the dogs on the dogs, try and save their guys for Auburn in the second half. And I think
when's the last time Auburn didn't cover the spread?
You mean Alabama?
I don't know. I'm honestly asking.
You mean Alabama?
I mean, when Alabama didn't cover the spread, when's the last time they didn't cover the spread?
I don't know. They've pretty much covered every week this season, I think.
That line ended at 24 last week in some places, so it would have been a push.
Yeah.
So.
All right, let's go to
their third-team players are too good for the Citadel. That's the problem. Yeah, their third and fourth team are going to be that good.
All right, let's go. But remember now, they run that triple option, which can give you a problem here or there. I'm just hoping they score a touchdown. That's all. Just push a touchdown across. All right, UTC at USC. The Gamecocks are favored by 30.5. Governor?
Gamecocks. I believe that Carolina's offensive show last week will continue this week, and that they'll win this one handily.
Mm-hmm. How about their defensive show?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that won't be quite what it was last week, but the competition's not quite that good.
Yeah. Andre?
I'm with it's going to be hard for me to gain my 3 games, but I'm with him. The Gamecocks will win this one handily, and they'll cover the spread.
See, Andre, you're not going to gain anything at this point. Now you're going to have to differ on this last one. Duke at Clemson. Clemson laying 28.5, Andre.
Taking the Tigers.
Governor?
Me too. Clemson's every time I picked against Clemson, I've lost. I'm taking Tigers.
But I mean, you guys, it's just a wash. You're not going to gain or lose anything. What kind of competition is this?
Great minds think alike.
All right, now listen.
Next thing you know, Jim Hodges is going to be a Republican.
Oh my!
Whoa!
I don't think so.
Now let's take a moment here to look at potential amendments, Andre. You're 3 games back, and there are games to be played in the coming weeks. But you sure you want to stick with everything you've got and not try and pick up something here or there?
I feel good about my games this week, and Jim and I are having a good close battle. 3 games, and I'd rather pound it out and get them right than try to pick one wrong. And I feel good about my picks. I feel good about Jim's picks this week.
Governor, you sticking?
I totally agree with him. I'm sticking.
All right. You guys have a great weekend, a great Thanksgiving. Where are you going to be doing Thanksgiving, Governor?
I'm going to be in Lancaster, South Carolina, having Thanksgiving. Looking
Very
forward
nice.
to it.
Very nice. How about you, Lieutenant Governor?
If I was in Lancaster for Thanksgiving, I'd stop by that wagon wheel and get that fried squash. But I'm going to be in Charleston, South Carolina.
Fried squash.
Fried squash.
That's. I'm with you, Andre. That's where I'm going.
Well, you guys have a great feast. Enjoy your families. Think about the games next week on Rivalry Saturday, and we'll get with you next Friday. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
I think
Take care.
I'm missing a genuine way to deliver squash. That seems odd, but
Listen,
awesome.
Anything can be fried, man. Anything. We thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for being with us here on Sports Talk. We'll be right back.
Including secondaries.
Time to put your money where your mouth is. Put them in field, let them fight it out.
He's a hustler. If you don't got cash, you won't be getting no stamps. And if you don't got money, you want some money. If you don't got cash, you won't be getting no. He's a gambler. At the house on the young and then we got change.
Show them the next item up for bid.
You said that yesterday during the Periscope we did from
Rock Hill.
Rock Hill.
Mm-hmm.
You said items up for bid, and I couldn't stop laughing. And I knew you were referencing this video.
That's the lead-in to our main man, Lee Sterling. Time for some Sterling picks here on Sports Talk. We get some professional help for the weekend because we all need professional help from time to time. We welcome in Lee Sterling from ParamountSports.com, coming off a 2-1 week with us. And hopefully that's an indication of how your week went last week, sir.
Went even better than that. We went 5-2 on Saturday, won our big game, and then first time ever, we usually rate the games from 10 to 50 units at 100-unit play, and Green Bay -9.5 doubled the spread and won 31-12. So it was a rather beautiful weekend.
Oh, and then the Packers just took my heart out of my gut last night and stomped all over it.
Yeah, they were there. I think McCarthy's days are numbered right now.
Seems to be. I mean, Packer fans are pretty pissed off about the way he's handling things right now. And you know what? You're wasting, any year now that you don't make a playoff run, win a Super Bowl, you're just wasting Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
The greatness of Aaron Rodgers.
A quarterback that good should make the playoffs every year and at least be able to be in the NFC championship game at least every other year.
Absolutely. All right, before we get to your games of this week, tell folks where to go to get your good stuff.
Well, we're going to try to stay on this roll here, and it's been this is usually the time of the year where we get on some incredible runs. It started last week, 5-2 in the college football, the NFL, Green Bay, 100-unit play. We have 3 more 30 to 35-unit plays. Actually, one of my plays was taken off the board, one of my biggest plays with Stanford. So they're going to wait a couple weeks to play that game because of the fires, and it's going to be a strong card for us. You want to hop on board, use coupon code SAVE200, knocks the price down for 3 weeks to $297. For the rest of the season, I lowered the price for that coupon code to $597. So we still have a lot of football to play. 2 weeks in college football. We're only on week 11 of the NFL, and we go to week 17 there, and 42 bowl games, NFL playoffs, and Super Bowl. $597 with coupon code SAVE200 at ParamountSports.com.
Real quick,
Yep.
What was it about that Packer-Dolphin matchup that led you to give it the what'd you call it? Your
first ever 100-unit play.
100-unit, yeah.
The matchups, number one, it was a must-win game for Green Bay. They had to win that game. They don't win that game at the time at 3-4-1, then they're done at that point. They were playing at home. The weather was going to be in the 20s. Dolphin players certainly aren't used to that. And then I had found out information early in the week that Miami was already down 2 starting offensive linemen out for the year. Both tackles were probably, and their 2 best linemen were probably not going to play in the game. So we had a big advantage. If you don't win a game like that, you're never going to win a game. That's why we released it as a 100-unit play.
Very good. All right, let's get to your games for this week. We begin with the Notre Dame-Syracuse game at Yankee Stadium. Irish favored by 9.
Yeah, and I just don't think Syracuse is going to be intimidated. Most people in the country, they saw that Clemson game. They went into Death Valley. They were a play away from winning that game. The Irish is good. They don't have any perceived weakness, but they're not able to pull away from good teams. And everyone's talking. I'm listening to these talking heads on ESPN. Mel Kiper Jr. talking about Daniel Jones, the 18th best player. He's talking about the quarterback from Missouri, being a first-round player. I think Eric Dungey's better than these 2 guys. He's thrown for 14 touchdowns. He's run for 12. I just think the way they play at a quick pace is going to put stress on the Notre Dame defense. It's time. Syracuse knocks off Notre Dame 38-36.
So New York's college team.
Yep.
Gotta love it.
Yep.
I'm there.
You've been saving that expression of joy all season long, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah. I like it.
No big upsets this year. It's crazy.
All right, let's go to Clemson and Duke.
Yeah.
Tigers laying 28.
Well, it's not going to be time here, but Duke has a chance to stay in the game here. For the first time, Clemson's defense didn't come away with a takeaway, but they were dominant. They held BC to 113 total yards in that game. It did help a little bit, the injuries to the quarterback for Boston College. But Daniel Jones, I think he's good. Is he great? No. They put up 547 yards last week on Carolina. David Cutcliffe, though, one of the best coaches as an underdog, 24-11-1 as a dog since 2013. And it's kind of a sandwich game here for Clemson coming after BC and with South Carolina on deck. Clemson wins 48-24, but Duke, they stay under the number.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the NFL. You've got the Rams laying 2 against Kansas City, a game that now will be played in L.A.
Yeah, and I it's good for the NFL for this game to be played on a fast track. You don't want to be ruined by playing on a poor surface, and this is a game I think everyone's been waiting for. You have, it has all the ingredients: 2 great offenses, great quarterbacks, great receivers. You got running backs who are great running the ball and catching the ball out of the backfield. A lot of guys can, catch a ball or run a ball and go 70, 80 yards after breaking the tackle. So I think it's going to come down to defense. And the last couple of weeks, Kansas City defense has been great, but 2 of those 3 games were at home. That crowd playing behind them, that can make a lot of defenses a lot better perceived as they really are. And the Rams' defensive line, I thought this was going to be a dominant defensive line, maybe one of the best 5 ever. They have 4 All-Pros there, and these are guys normally need to be double-teamed, and they just have not shown up the last 2 weeks. I think at home they're going to come ready to play, and also Patrick Mahomes looks like he's on the injury list, some type of foot injury. I think he's going to go down 3 or 4 times in this game. I like the Rams in a shootout, 42-35.
All right, your game of the week, the Panthers up in Detroit. Laying 4.
They want to get this game. Carolina needs this game bad after losing the last game on Thursday night to Pitt. Detroit, they need to win this game or it's over for them. So you want to get this game for free. I think I've got some real good intel on this Carolina-Detroit game. Just be one of the first 5 callers, 800-400-9741. If you want to hop aboard and get some winning plays, it's all available. Use that coupon code SAVE200 at ParamountSports.com.
All right, my friend, have a great weekend, great holiday, and we'll talk to you next Friday.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you very much. Lee Sterling, our Sterling picks here on Sports Talk. Let's get to the recruiting before we hit the top of the hour break. We begin with the news earlier today of a decommitment from USC's 2020 class in running back Mikos Todd of Villa Rica, Georgia. He committed to the Gamecocks back in February. He was the first commitment in the 2020 class. Some of his other offers are Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Southern Cal, and Virginia Tech. Now, those are summertime offers from earlier this year. We'll see what happens moving forward. USC today offered cornerback DeQuantius Watts of Atlanta. He is someone we have followed because at one point he was looking hard at Clemson back in the spring and early summer. He plans to take an unofficial visit Saturday to USC. He's also been committed to UCF since September. He tells us that the commitment remains strong at this time. Some of his other summertime offers were Boston College, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and West Virginia. Now, this weekend, Clemson will have a couple of top targets in for officials. Linebacker Quavaris Crouch, offensive lineman Will Putnam. Crouch has also taken officials to Michigan, Florida State, and Tennessee, and Putnam has also taken officials to Auburn and Florida State. Cornerback Jadon Hill, Madison, Alabama, will take an official to USC this coming weekend. The Gamecocks also will have running back Taj Gary of Atlanta in for an unofficial, and he's going to come back on December 7th for an official visit. He's been committed to Virginia Tech since October, but he has not shut things down yet. He said UCF and Kentucky are 2 other possible officials. This year's 1,217 rushing yards, averaging 10 yards a carry and 13 touchdowns, plus 26 catches, 516 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Clemson offered 2020 linebacker Philip Webb of Buford, Georgia. Basketball women's 6'2" Rakia Jackson of Detroit, a USC target committed to Mississippi State. There you go with recruiting. Keep an eye on it over the weekend on our website, SportsTalkSC.com.
Opposition research. We'll go into Duke. We'll go into Chattanooga. Coming up here to start hour 2 on Sports Talk.
2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network as we get ready for a little opposition research as we begin the weekend here with South Carolina taking on Chattanooga and Clemson facing Duke. We will look at the Duke Blue Devils first with their radio voice, David Shoemate, who joins us here on Sports Talk to get ready for this game. And, you know, David, this is not a common opponent for Clemson, just the second time in Dabo Swinney's head coaching tenure that he's seen them. David Cutcliffe saw them at least a couple of times in his tenure at Duke. What can you tell us about what Duke brings to the table, a 7-3 team, and, of course, a couple of very big road wins to their credit this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing you can say about this program. I think everyone around here would say fortunate that Duke doesn't have to take Clemson all that often, as good as they've been the last few years. But I think the thing that has made Duke so effective on the road is this team just has a toughness and a grit about them. They're 4-1 away from home this year, which speaks to a lot of different things, and including that win at Miami, their first one since 1976. So they're not afraid to take it on the road. In some respects, you talk to a lot of people around the program, they feel like they play better away from home because it can focus them. You know, when you're home, you got family in town, you got distractions, you know, your girlfriend, you're on campus and things like that. When you go on the road, you can just kind of focus into the task at hand, and it's worked out well for them. Of course, if you're going to break down Duke, I think the conversation has to start with Daniel Jones. Most people think he's a potential first-round draft pick if he chooses to come out in terms of an NFL prospect. He's a big guy, tall, can really throw the football, has a great arm, very accurate. He's been a big weapon, and that's been a difference for the Duke offense the last couple of weeks as they've kind of gone to more empty sets because of his accuracy and his decision-making. It helps out with some issues that maybe they had earlier in the season along the offensive line, quite simply because he's just not holding on the ball very long, allowing the receivers to make some plays, and it's worked out well.
You know, Cutcliffe has gotten to bowls at Duke. He is at least kind of taken the program and put it in a whole different spin and a whole different light. Has he rid Duke completely of the moniker that you just can't have a modicum of success there, or is it more just a testament to what he is as a head coach, or has he transformed this program really?
I think the program's completely turned a corner, and not just certainly from wins-loss standpoint. I think that speaks for itself, what he's done versus what things were like previously, but also from a facility standpoint. I mean, the football stadium used to have a track around it, was a multi-purpose facility, did renovations a couple of years ago. The track is gone, built a full-length practice field and an indoor practice facility, and now, you know, Duke's facilities can rival anyone, and in some cases are much better than other opponents in their division and throughout the ACC, and I think that has changed a lot of perceptions, and you've gotten to the cycle now. Look, Duke just coming off of a rival win over North Carolina, where now they've won 5 out of 7 in the series. And you know how it is these days with the ADD generation and kids these days. They don't think of Duke like maybe someone who's, you know, a little bit older and remembers the day when Duke was struggling. To these kids, the David Cutcliffe Duke football program is the only thing they know. And I think that speaks a lot to the uptick in recruiting Duke has seen.
Talking to David Shoemate, voice of the Duke Blue Devils, as we get ready for Clemson and Duke this upcoming Saturday at Death Valley. You know, from the Coastal Division, and again, just only getting a chance to see the two teams head-to-head against Clemson and obviously seeing the teams play against each other, how far behind do you think the Coastal Division is as a whole, behind not just Clemson, but even, you know, some of these schools in the Atlantic where a lot of these crossovers have gone in the favor of the other division?
Well, I mean, obviously, I kind of live in the Coastal Division. It was interesting that you bring it up from that perspective because I think, from my perspective, Clemson's on another level, but it's not like the rest of the Coastal has been, or the rest of the Atlantic, excuse me, has been killing it.
Right.
So I would think the Atlantic and the Coastal are pretty much on par, and Clemson's just kind of head and shoulders above everyone else right now because, you know, Duke matches up with Wake Forest every year, and that's kind of a back-and-forth series. Duke won last year at Wake Forest. Duke has had some success against that division, almost beat Florida State here last year. So I don't think there's a huge gap between the divisions. I think it's fair to say, though, there's a huge gap between Clemson and everybody else.
Of course, we're talking about the Duke Blue Devils this week. You mentioned the quarterback, Daniel Jones, and obviously Dabo Swinney, very complimentary of him, and people nationally have been complimentary of him. What makes him stand out above others when it comes to his quarterbacking?
Well, the raw talent is obviously there. I think it's easy to see at 6'5", 220, so you have the physical capabilities, certainly can throw, but I think what sets him apart is his preparation. He's the first one in the facility and the last to leave. Watching film, he's taken full advantage of the fact that David Cutcliffe has deep roots in the quarterbacking world. And, you know, he's had a chance to visit with, you know, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. The Mannings are always here in the spring, and taking full advantage of those opportunities, not getting so lost in his own world that he's not able to take advantage of the other minds that are around him. And just an incredibly bright kid. He's an economics major here at Duke and set to graduate this December, and obviously going to do some graduate studies work as well. But I think that's what sets him apart, is his mental aptitude and the way he goes about attacking his preparation for the game. When you meet him in person, you see him in the media. I wouldn't describe media interviews as his favorite thing to do. So he can come across as a little quiet or maybe even shy. But when you see him in the locker room around his teammates, he's an incredible leader. He's been a captain for 2 years now, and he's just a special kid, the way he approaches it. But the thing that you guys will notice on Saturday night will be the accuracy with the throws and the way he's this year even improved to the extent of last year. He was always accurate, but maybe he wasn't leading guys as much. And a big conversation for Duke has been creating explosive plays. And they're talking about 16-plus yard pass plays. He's done a much better job on slants or routes to the sideline of leading his guys to allow them to break one downfield. And like I said, it's worked out the last few weeks, going over 600 yards of offense in 2 of their last 3 games.
Talking to David Shoemate, Duke Blue Devil Radio Network, joining us here on Sports Talk as we do a little opposition research on our program here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, and looking at the receivers too. I mean, you see experience, you see a little bit of size too, and just from noticing them on film, a lot of physicality. And I think if there's one advantage this weekend, it could be the fact that they haven't seen, and they being the Clemson secondary, hasn't seen a receiver group that could at least bring as much physicality across the board as this group can. How do you believe that could work to Duke's advantage?
Yeah, I think, and also they bring a variety of skill sets. I mean, they do have the guys, the speedsters down the sideline, like a Chris Taylor, that Duke can bring to the table. And Jonathan Lloyd, who's a senior, maybe not the fastest guy you've ever seen, but as you said, very physical, and then a very unique player in TJ Ramming, who's probably Duke's best all-around receiver. A little guy, 5'10", 170, but really good short space quickness, can get open against pretty much every team Duke has played across the middle. And they moved him from playing out wide to playing in the slot more this season. It seemed to work out well. And once he catches the ball, he's very hard to get down. So you're right. Duke's receiving core is experienced. Did not have the best year a year ago. Jared Parker has taken over that group as the receivers coach, and they've been a lot more dynamic. And as I said, they've gone to empty sets of late, which has allowed for more one-on-one matchups. And at least to this point, Duke has had some success winning those. That being said, I appreciate what you're saying. Clemson is a slightly different animal. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out this weekend.
And, of course, the different animal is this Clemson offense, which has put up gaudy numbers all season. How do you see the Duke defense matching up with what Trevor Lawrence and company bring to the table?
Yeah, well, you say Trevor Lawrence. I think Travis Etienne.
Either way.
Because while Clemson's been very balanced, I don't think there's any secret looking at the stats. Duke is pretty beat up in terms of injuries on defense. Edgar Cernor, they lost earlier in the year in a game against Georgia Tech. Big piece for them inside on the defensive line. Joe Giles Harris missed last week. Who knows if he'll be able to go this week. They're missing Mark Gilbert in the secondary. All that to be said, last year, Duke did a really good job stopping the run. Early in the year, they did a good job stopping the run. But the last 3 weeks, it's been a pretty significant issue. Over 1,000 yards allowed rushing just in the last 3 games. Remarkable that Duke has won 2 of those 3 games and shut out Miami in the second half and only allowed 7 points in the second half against North Carolina last week. So give Duke's coordinator some credit. They've been able to make adjustments at halftime, but there are concerns, I would think, of stopping the run just because ETN is so explosive. And I think that will be something that could be a challenge.
David Shoemate, man who covers Duke, is the voice of the Duke Blue Devils, getting ready for this weekend game against Clemson. David, always appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
That's the voice of the Duke Blue Devils, David Shoemate, and of course, Duke 7-3, 3-3 in the ACC. Still an outside shot at a potential Coastal Championship if certain things break their way. Of course, with the way that Pittsburgh is playing, you know, they've been very up and down as the way their season has gone. We'll come back and take a look at South Carolina's opponent, the Chattanooga Mocs, with Air Radio voice Jim Reynolds when he comes back with us on Opposition Research on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Opposition research continues here on Sports Talk as we look towards the Chattanooga Mocs, who come in to face the South Carolina Gamecocks out of the FCS and the Southern Conference. We, of course, know them very well from seeing them both at Wofford and Furman. As the man who covers the Chattanooga Mocs for the Chattanooga Times Free Press, Gene Henley, joining us here on Sports Talk. And Gene, this Chattanooga team 4-4 in the Southern Conference, 6-4 overall. Pretty stingy on defense. What kind of team are the Mocs bringing to Williams-Brice Stadium this weekend?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of said it. They're really stout defensively, really strong defensively. I mean, it may not show up as much in a game like against the Gamecocks, but they have a really good defense, and they actually have a good passing attack as well. But the fact that they've struggled to run the ball some this year has really kind of affected that. So they're led by their defense, and then they're still trying to work some things out offense.
Yeah, looking at their schedule in the SoCon, their losses are not necessarily losses you could sneeze at. ETSU, Wofford, Furman, and Mercer. These are all quality teams, so it's not like they've lost to any teams that you wouldn't have expected them to lose to. What has been, you mentioned the running game. What have been some of the other trouble areas for them when you look across their 10-game season?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, when you look, their 4 losses. Trying to remember here, it looks like 14. Their 4 losses are about 24 points, and so all their games they've been in. But you're looking, they gave up 13 points last week in a loss, 16 the week before in a loss, 21 in a loss, and 17 in a loss. And so it's just trying to put together scoring drives, especially when the games are close, and they have not been able to do that. They could very easily be 10-0, but there are also there's a couple of losses along the way that they could also very easily be, 6-4, 5-5. So they've just struggled. They've just struggled to put together the sorts of drives and put enough points on the board to win games. But their defense has not been the reason for that. They've just had some trouble offense.
Talking, of course, with Gene Henley, who covers the Chattanooga Mocs here on Sports Talk as they get ready for South Carolina this weekend. Give me a little bit of background on Bryce Nunnally, because from the standpoint of where he sits, he wasn't a guy that made any of the preseason all-conference teams, but he's a 2-time SoCon Player of the Week award winner, and 1,100 yards, 74 passes caught, and 7 touchdowns. He seems like a big threat for them.
Yeah, and Bryce started really, really strong. I think he had about 550 yards after the first 3 games receiving. He's been slowed down. Which is kind of just the offense in the whole in a nutshell. They've just been, he was just slowed down by the fact the offense couldn't really get going. But in the preseason, this is the guy that the coaching staff said was their best receiver, and you may not have known it, you may not have realized it, but he was that, and he showed it early on, and I still think he is that. But yeah, he's a track guy, and those are guys that sometimes you don't necessarily know about, but he runs really good routes. He's faster than people think. He's a lot faster than people realize. He's far from what you would consider a quote unquote possession receiver. He can beat people deep if he's taken, if he's, not given the credit that he's due. But he's a really good player, and he's been a really big part of their success this season.
Gene, looking at the depth chart and kind of looking at the way that they list it for Chattanooga, it seems like they will bring a variety of different looks. They're not afraid to use a fullback, but they're also not afraid to spread it out. Well, what kind of look did they bring offensively?
They're a pro-style offense, and that's, so they're sometimes the fullback will be in there. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes it'll just be single back sets. There's a lot of shifts and motions involved with what they do. It's a lot of it's predicated on the quarterback, Nick Giano, who is a Mississippi State transfer. They have a number of SEC transfers from their team, not a ton, but a number of scholarship SEC transfers, and they do a lot of different things, and when it's working, it works well, and when it's not, it looks rough. But I mean, they're very unique in that because there aren't that many teams that run, just a flat out pro style offense in this day and age where everybody wants to run the spread.
Chattanooga Mocs here on our opposition research segment on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Gene Henley of the Chattanooga Times Free Press, very happy to join us here as we continue to go over the Mocs. Okay, defense. You talk about the scoring defense, which is tops in the SoCon, one of the best inside FCS, and also very good in turnover margin. Who are the playmakers defensively that South Carolina has to worry about, and what has led to this successful defense?
Well, they're just a really, really strong unit. And I think in some cases they bend but don't break. They early in the season, there have been some games where they've given up a lot of yards, but they just haven't given up the points. And you kind of have to have that. I mean, they haven't given up more than, in regulation, the most points they gave up was 27. They gave up 28 in the game that was in overtime, and the game that they gave up 27 was actually one of those. Just I think they got a touchdown right at the end of the game that kind of made it look a little bit better. But they're strong. I mean, they're strong up front. They've got a kid, Isaiah Mack, who's a defensive. He's a defensive lineman that I believe actually in the last 4 games he has 8.5 sacks. Yes, he has 7.5 sacks in the last 4 games. 8.5 for the season. And, he's a strong kid. They have a kid from Western Kentucky, kid named Derek Mahaffey, who's a defensive tackle who has done a really good job here. I mean, he's actually the heart and soul of that defense. He intercepted a pass and returned it for a touchdown last week, and it was waved off because he apparently high-stepped, the last 3 yards. So they actually have a really strong unit up front, and they're pretty stout in the secondary as well. They've got some depth. The Kareem Moore kid I talked about earlier, 2-year starter, leads the team in interceptions. They're a quality unit, and they bring a lot of different looks that kind of is dictated by what the other team is doing. And so, it's pretty much a lot of 3-down looks, but they could do a lot of different things, and I think that's what's made this team so versatile.
South Carolina fans know the recent history of these games. Gene, what is the avenue for Chattanooga to keep this thing interesting in the second half?
I think that's, the way that their season's gone. I mean, their only avenue into, to the playoffs is to win at South Carolina. And that still may not be enough, although I think that would, that would kind of be ridiculous. I think that's their motivation. I mean, they really want to play well. They want to be successful. They want to go out with a bang. And if that means, making it a full quarter game and having an opportunity to win at the end, they'd love for that to happen because it would, again, a win over South Carolina would boost your resume to saying, okay, we have to put this team in the playoffs. And that's the only way they're going to make it because the record is not going to be good enough otherwise. 65 will not get you in the playoffs, especially in a year where the league itself was down and didn't really do much in terms of scheduling non-conference opponents to get quality wins. So that's their motivation. Like they have to win and get in. But of course, this is not like you're just playing a regular opponent. You're playing an SEC team that is pretty quality. So it'll be an interesting game. I'll say that much. I don't think much about their chances, to be honest with you. But I mean, again, crazy things have happened. Citadel just beat them 3 years ago, so why not them? I guess you could say. But I just wouldn't put money on it.
Gene, we appreciate the time as always. Safe travels up here, and thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, sounds great, man. Hey, thanks for having me.
Those are the words of Gene Henley. Certainly, of course, a overmatched team coming into South Carolina. But as he said, stranger things have happened. And, we've seen that come to fruition here over the course of the last couple of years with South Carolina. But we'll see if the Gamecocks can rebound after their loss to Florida and get themselves into bowl eligibility going into the game against Clemson and obviously the makeup game with the Akron Zips at the end of the year. We'll come back. We'll look at the final NASCAR race of the season at Homestead with Monty Dutton, who will join us next for the full Monty on NASCAR. That comes your way next on a Football Friday on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We're back here. Before we get to the full Monty on NASCAR, a couple of business items to still catch you up on. We do have one more high school report to bring you, brought to you by the folks at Farm Bureau Insurance. With Fave Rates from Farm Bureau, you get all your favorite things like competitive rates, local agents, and great claim service for all of your auto, home, and life insurance needs. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com. The Palmetto Champions team, Corn.
Yes, indeed, from the South Carolina Football Coaches Association, something that we are closely affiliated with here on Sports Talk. There is no banquet this year because of the extended season, but today they did announce the all-star team, and later this month they'll announce the individual winners by the position. So here we go. In 5A Upper State, the back of the year is Alex Meredith of TL Hanna. The lineman is Zach Pickens of TL Hanna. For 5A Lower State back is Eileen Ford of West Florence. The lineman is Josiah Commander of Dutch Fork. In 4A Upper State back is Tyrell Jackson of Wren. The lineman is Quintavious Cohen of Greer. The 4A Lower State back is Tyon Evans of Hartsville, and the lineman is Caree Collier of North Augusta. The 3A Upper State back is Jalon Calhoun of Southside. The lineman is Wyatt Tunnel of Chester. 3A Lower State back, Shamar McCullum of Dillon, and the lineman is Darius Bell of Gilbert. The AA Upper State back is Courtney Jackson of Abbeville, and the lineman is Nate Temple of Abbeville. AA Lower State back is Janez Sumter of Carvers Bay, and the lineman is Dalmont Gordine of Garrett. 1A Upper State back, Keyshawn Toney, Gamecock commitment from Williston Elko. The lineman is Jordan Green of Lamar. The 1A Lower State back is Rashad Maxwell of Baptist Hill, and the lineman is Darius Williams of Hemingway. The specialists in 5A, Michael Hayes of West Florence. In 4A, Patrick Nations of Walhalla. In 3A, Owen Wilson of Broome. 2A, Cameron Profit of Hannah-Pamplico. And in single A, Bradley Nichols of Dixie. The coaches, 5A Upper State, Bubba Pittman of Rock Hill. Lower State, Mark Morris of Carolina Forest.
There you go.
Got his name right this time after messing it up 2 weeks in a row. Apologize, Coach. Mark Morris of Carolina Forest. 4A Upper State, Will Young of Greer. Lower State, Colin Drafts of AC Flora. 3A Upper State, Victor Floyd of Chester. Lower State, Rodney Summers of May River. 2A Upper State, Jason Farmer of Landrum. Lower State, John Williams of Mullins. 1A Upper State, Derek Youngblood of Williston Elko. And Lower State is Donnie Kiefer of Green Sea Floyds. And before we get to Monty, we do have to tell you about our picks for this week.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do.
Oh.
By the way, as we checked the standings last week, 5-0 for Kev Cohen. He lit it up. The leader going into this week's action remains a tie between the pro leads at 36-19, a tie for second between Matt the Newsman and Fran Halloran, the money coach, 33-22. And then at 32-23 is the bad boy Alan Smothers. 31-24 would be yours truly. 30-25 would be the big kahuna and Brian Leonard. And once again, in last place would be you, Will Pelagic, 24-31.
So sorry.
So quickly, Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, and we're all taking Georgia Southern except for Kev Cohen and Brian Leonard.
Interesting.
The morning team on the point in Columbia, they must have gotten together this morning and talked about that. Cute. Savannah State at SC State, and we're all taking SC State except for Kev Cohen. He wants the points. Citadel at Alabama, my goodness. The three of us are taking the points.
Really?
And the Bulldogs.
Really?
Everybody else is taking Bama.
Interesting.
UTC at USC, and you're taking the Mocs. Pro is taking the Mocs. Everybody else is taking the Gamecocks.
I just don't think that Carolina can blow out people.
I prefer the Cox over the Mocs. And Clemson, Duke, everybody's taking Clemson except for Kev Cohen. He's trying to make a run here. He's taking Duke. Okay, now to the full Monty on NASCAR, starring Monty Dutton of MontyDutton.com here on Sports Talk. They have wrapped up qualifying at Homestead. Denny Hamlin on the pole, 173.863. Then it's Kyle Busch second, Martin Truex Jr. third, Brad Keselowski 4th, and Joey Logano 5th. Before we get to that, though, I know you want to talk about David Pearson and his passing this week.
Yes. I think that there's a pretty knowledgeable contingent of people who covered racing over the years or who are around it who think he's the best there ever was, and I'm one of them. I admit that I'm a bit biased because we always have warm feelings toward the heroes of our youth. But I got to know him, and he's one of my favorite people. He's one of my favorite people because I think he was not. I'd always grown up hearing that Pearson was so shy and not much of an interview, and I discovered that he's one of my favorite people to talk to ever because you couldn't have a regular interview. You had to set him off. You had to get him laughing. And then he's like one of the funniest people I've ever talked to. So I'll miss him.
Yes, yes. And he was such a great representative of his sport in the state because, you know, there was nothing fake about David Pearson. I mean, you knew him much better than I did. You were around him a lot more. But it just seemed like to me he was a racer's racer. That's what he was. He was a stock car driver from the old days, and he never veered from that, even as the sport stubbornly modernized during his latter years. I mean, he still kind of stuck with his old school ways.
He never said the politically correct thing. My favorite Pearson comment was when he was at a press conference for Nicorette, and he and a bunch of other drivers who had smoked when they drove and no longer did were there. And a question asked David was, they said, David, when you were driving, tobacco sponsored NASCAR, and now a company that helps people quit smoking sponsors NASCAR. What does that say about the sport? And without blinking an eye, Pearson said, pretty much says to me, NASCAR will do anything for money.
And we know that to be true, right?
Yes, it was right on the money, like many Pearson things. But stories like that are what made me. I'm not really. David lived a long and productive life. I'm not overly sad at his passing. He has had, since he had a stroke a few years ago, he's had a rough time. But thinking of Pearson will make me chuckle.
Yes. All right, to the race. It's the championship weekend. The 4, Kyle Busch will start 2nd. Joey Logano will start 5th. As I come on down the list, Kevin Harvick's going to go off 12th. And where is our other guy? Who am I forgetting here? Who is our 4th
guy?
Logano.
Logano's right up near the front, 5th or so.
No, I'm forgetting Truex. Where's Truex? Third.
Only the reigning champion.
Yeah. So Busch is 2nd, Truex is 3rd, Logano is 5th, and Harvick is 12th in the starting grid. So who do you like in this one? Who loves this track? Who does this track favor?
Well, I tell you who loves this track is Kyle Larson. The last 2 years, you can make the argument that the young driver being unwilling to race real hard against the guys racing for the championship prevented him from winning. And so he might be in a position whether he will decline the opportunity of being a spoiler. I would actually like to see the race for the championship be for 3rd and 4th and somebody else win the final race. But almost every year lately, the guys have to win this race to win the championship. And that's certainly a good way to do it, but I wouldn't mind having a little extra factor of somebody else like Chase Elliott or who is not in a position to sacrifice himself for the championship, who's with another team, and I'd like to see that added element as the laps wind down.
And who comes away with the championship? Got about 20 seconds.
I think it's a flip a coin for favorites between Harvick and Busch. I'm going to push Dick Harvick because this is a Ford year. But Logano could break through there. It'd be nice to see a surprise, too.
We shall see. I hope it's a down-to-the-wire, last lap kind of thing without the caution. I just hope it's a natural fight to the finish.
You want a natural birth?
Yes.
Yes, instead of a trumped-up finish, have an honest 2 equal cars.
You got it, my man.
Bill.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Monty. We'll talk to you next week.
Pun was intended. Birth as in B-E-R-T-H.
Yes, I got you. Back in a moment with Ellis Johnson. False start.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It is 4th and goal time, and it's time to chat with the assistant, formerly of South Carolina and Clemson import, Ellis Johnson, for our last chance to check in on the Tigers and Gamecocks this week.
I prefer to refer to him as the former head coach at Southern Miss and the Citadel, Ellis Johnson.
Well, we usually were talking about South Carolina.
Because he might want to forget about Southern Miss. Coach, how are you?
Doing good, guys. How are y'all?
Great. Thanks for joining us tonight. We wrap up the week with you. Can't think of a better way to do it. So, South Carolina's got another bye weekend in that they're buying a win here against UTC. But, you having coached in the Southern Conference at the FCS level, I'm sure that you give all respect in the world to the Moccasins and feel like they can come in and give the Gamecocks a bit of a battle.
Yeah, I actually saw them early in the season, Phil. I went down to visit some friends at the Citadel and hang out with some old teammates, and I saw them play Citadel. It was a very close ball game. They're a pretty good offensive football team. Got a very good quarterback. I don't know if they could protect him well enough against the Gamecocks to have any success, but they threw the ball extremely well. They were, of course, trying to defend that wishbone on defense. So I couldn't tell much about them, but they do have some pretty athletic-looking players for that level. But those games are always a little dangerous. I think the big thing, though, is South Carolina is not healthy. It's just unbelievable, the injuries they're sustaining at this time of the year. And some of them in the secondary. So if they're able to give that kid some time, he is a pretty good little passer. They should not have any problem winning the ball game, but I know they'll have to play well to make progress and get ready for Clemson next week.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup, Ellis, because, looking at their metrics, and again, these metrics are all based against their peers, but, I mean, they have the #1 scoring defense in the SoCon, #8 in the FCS. This is no slouch that's coming into Williams-Brice Stadium, at least on the FCS level. And, we've seen South Carolina have struggles against these types of teams. Citadel, even Wofford last year gave Carolina a game into the second half.
Yeah, they really do. And, of course, I think most of our fans have watched that level enough to know there are a lot of transfers in those teams that go to go to Power 5 schools, don't play all 4 years, end up back down in the 1 AA level. They also can recruit junior college transfers. So there's some players mixing these lineups, and you get a couple of bad matchups occasionally. But I hate to keep being repetitive, but South Carolina's depth chart right now is not good. They're not healthy. They don't have good depth. And I'm sure they want to get off to a real good start and get this game under control as quickly as they can.
All right, let's turn our attention to Clemson and Duke. The Tigers trying to wrap up another undefeated run through the ACC. What do you think of their performance up at Boston College last weekend? Did you see anything defensively that Boston College did that maybe gave Clemson a little bit of an issue?
Not really. I think most of it was being done in the perimeter. And what I read about it afterwards, they gave him some looks that maybe he wasn't sure where he wanted to go with football as quickly as he wanted to. So I think they did a pretty good job defending Clemson overall. At the end of the day, though, they still got over 400 yards, and they had a pretty balanced attack between their rushing and their passing. And Clemson did have turnovers, and Boston College did not. I guess they probably played the game to the script that they planned to play it. I'm talking about Boston College. But in the end of the day, they're not good enough. They don't have good enough players in order to play with Clemson. So the thing about Clemson, I don't think this was one of their best games in the last few weeks, but Clemson's playing a lot better than they were early in the year, more consistently, I'll say, than they were early in the year. And I think the move to Trevor Lawrence is starting to show that it was the right thing to do when they did it. Unfortunately, they lost another really good player, and he didn't want to stay and be the backup. Hopefully, Trevor will stay healthy, because if he does, I think they're a pretty dynamic offense with him in there. Defensively, what they did at Boston College was just, smothering. And as long as you play that good of defense, your offense is going to get too many opportunities.
4th and goal with Ellis Johnson joining us here on Sports Talk. And as a defensive guru, Ellis, if I can at least characterize you as such, the one question I have for Clemson as far as their defense goes is I'm still jaded by what we saw against Texas A&M in the second week of the season with the way Kellen Mond was able to carve them up. We haven't necessarily seen them play like that against any other quarterback, save for maybe Eric Dungy. I wonder if that's the competition, or has this unit, the third level in particular, have they progressed in your mind?
Probably a little bit of both. I think that the biggest factor, Texas A&M is really good up front on offense, and they were able to protect their quarterback until the end of the game. And the only reason they weren't then is because, obviously, Clemson knew they had to throw. But I didn't see the entire every snap, but I saw a lot of that game, and I was really surprised at how equal Texas A&M was in talent. And I think that their offensive line negated the best strength of Clemson's football team, which is their defensive front. I do think Clemson's gotten better, though. I think they're playing a lot better football right now than they were early in the year. Previous seasons, they would start off and be having dominant wins and then hit something where they, stump their toe, or they'd have a bad game and they'd have that one loss, that one blemish on the record. Perhaps that game early in the year, having to really play it down to the wire, cause them to have to bring the best game the rest of the season. Maybe send them a wake-up call without getting a loss. I don't think anybody can beat Clemson the rest of the way except Clemson. And they've got a very easy schedule left. It looks like even to play the ACC championship game, they got probably going to end up playing Pittsburgh, who's got 4 losses and not even in the top 25.
Yeah.
So that they've got an easy slate right now. And so what they got to do is just take care of themselves and make sure they play their best game and continue to get better.
All right, your Bulldogs are 51-point underdogs to Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Do you think you can score a touchdown, maybe kind of get a backdoor cover there? And you're going to watch? You're going to sit down and watch that game tomorrow?
I will try to see a little bit of it. I had a bunch of friends begging me to go over there, and I said, I've been over there too many times and had some bad trips in there too. But I hope they can. Citadel's got one more game after that, and they're sitting there trying to get to 500. They've had such a frustrating season, Phil. They lost 2 overtime games. They lost 2 more games in the last drive of the game. So they've had a really frustrating year, and all they need to do is hopefully come out of this one healthy, do some things to feel like they've improved as a team. You have to feel like Alabama's going to want to, make sure they go out and take care of business early and then play as many people as they can. And obviously they want to stay healthy too. They probably don't like playing against the style of blocking and the style of offense that Citadel's going to play. So what you want to do is go out and get that game under control as quickly as you can.
Of course, we'll talk more with you next week about South Carolina-Clemson game, but as you sit here a little over a week away, you think South Carolina can make it a contest this year after being manhandled the last 3 years?
Only if the depth chart gets improvement. They're right now, they don't have they just don't have a full roster. And I hate to keep using it as an excuse, but I'm in a position, I don't have to make excuses. I'm just giving reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They've got too many guys out right now, and they're all hitting in the safety position. And they've also got 2 running backs hurt now. I'm not sure that both of them are full speed. And then the defensive tackle spot has been a little thin all year long, and young guys just haven't progressed as fast as they wanted them to. And most of their really damaging yardage that they're giving up on defense is happening late in the games. And I'm sure there's a lot of fatigue and lack of depth involved in that.
Mm-hmm. In my mind, Ellis, South Carolina's biggest, I guess, disadvantage is the fact that they kind of have that mental block. And I think so much of that happens when they get on the field. And just from that standpoint, how do you conquer that?
Well, when I got here, Phil, I wasn't aware of it because I wasn't keeping up real close. But Clemson was like 6-2 the previous 8 years. And, of course, what took care of us, we got our guys, we got recruiting going, we got our guys ready to play, and we beat them for 5 years in a row. It just, you have to beat them on the field to beat them on the road sometime. And I think the way Clemson, the big problem right now is Clemson's doing such an excellent job recruiting. They've got consistent classes year after year after year, and they don't ever have a rebuilding year. They have just another year where they start to improve some young players. So that's the biggest thing. I think Will's made some big strides in some areas. They've been handicapped, and they can't make the hump because of these injuries. It keeps young players from getting better. It keeps them from winning and getting a lot of confidence. There's just so many things can snowball on you.
Coach, thank you, man. We got to run. You have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. We'll see you Monday here on Sports Talk.